Some stories find us when we least expect them. They arrive not in grand announcements, but in quiet moments: a knock at the door, a letter in the mailbox, a sound in the night that changes everything. This is a story about two souls who had given up on being found. One was a dog, abandoned on a frozen road because she was no longer useful. The other was a woman, living alone in a house full of memories, wondering if anyone would notice if she simply stopped waking up one morning. They found each other on the coldest night of the year. What happened next reminded me of something my grandmother used to say: sometimes help arrives in the strangest packages, and sometimes the one doing the rescuing is the one who needed saving all along. This is for anyone who has ever felt forgotten. You are not alone. The scratching woke her at 2 a.m. Martha Whitmore lay still in the darkness, listening. Wind rattled the old windows. The furnace hummed its familiar song, but beneath those sounds something else. A faint, rhythmic scraping against the front door. She had not heard that sound in 3 years, not since Harold passed. Her feet found the cold floor, her robe hung on the bedpost where it always hung, and she pulled it around her shoulders as she moved through the hallway, past the photographs on the wall wedding day, children's graduations, grandchildren she barely knew anymore. The scratching stopped, then started again, weaker this time. Martha reached the front door and flicked on the porch light. Yellow glow spilled across the snow. Her hand froze on the deadbolt. A dog sat on her doorstep. A German shepherd, though it took her a moment to recognize the breed beneath the matted fur and protruding ribs. The animal looked up at her through the glass, and Martha felt something twist in her chest. Those eyes, they held no hope, no pleading, just a tired acceptance, as though the dog had knocked on 100 doors before this one and expected nothing different. Martha had seen that look before. In the mirror, most mornings. She opened the door. The cold hit her face like a slap. "Well," she said, her voice rough from sleep. "You coming in or not?" The dog did not move. It sniffed the threshold, sniffed her slippers, sniffed the warm air drifting out from the house. Cautious, calculating, as if doors that opened might also close without warning. Someone had taught this animal not to trust. "I ain't got all night," Martha said. "Make up your mind." The dog rose slowly, painfully, and stepped inside. One paw, then another, its belly nearly dragged on the floor. Martha's breath caught, not just a starving dog, a pregnant one, heavily pregnant. The kind of pregnant that meant hours, not days. She looked closer and saw the scars, a notch missing from the left ear, patches of fur that would never grow back. And when Martha reached down just to touch, just to reassure, the dog flinched so violently that it nearly fell over. It squeezed its eyes shut, braced for a blow that did not come. Martha lowered her hand, slowly, carefully. "Easy, girl," she whispered. "Nobody's going to hurt you here." The dog opened one eye, then the other, still trembling. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the furnace hummed. And somewhere between those two worlds, Martha Whitmore stood in her living room at 2 a.m, looking at a creature who had shown up on her doorstep carrying a belly full of new life and a past full of pain. She thought about calling animal control. She thought about the shelter 20 miles away. She thought about all the sensible things a 72-year-old woman living alone should do. Then she looked at that dog, really looked, and saw herself staring back. Two souls the world had forgotten about. Martha walked to Harold's chair, the one nobody had sat in since the funeral. His navy blue blanket still lay folded on the armrest, exactly where he had left it 3 years ago. She had washed it once, right after the service, then folded it back and never touched it again. Some mornings she would sit across the room just to look at it, remembering how it had covered his legs during those final months. She picked it up now, held it to her face, breathed in the fading scent of Old Spice and something she could not name, just Harold. Just 50 years of marriage wrapped in wool. "Oh, Harold," she murmured. "You'd say I've lost my mind." She carried the blanket to the corner by the fireplace and spread it on the floor. "Here," she told the dog. "This'll have to do." The German shepherd looked at the blanket, looked at Martha, then, slowly, like a creature who had learned that comfort always came with a cost. She lowered herself onto the soft wool and let out a long, shuddering breath. For the first time that night, her body relaxed. Martha eased herself down against the wall, knees aching, back protesting. She was too old for this, too tired, too alone. But she stayed. And in the yellow glow of the living room, with snow piling against the windows and a pregnant stray curled up on her dead husband's blanket, Martha Whitmore whispered the truest thing she had said in years. "You and me both. Girl." If this story has touched your heart tonight, I would love to know where you are reading from. Sometimes the smallest connections remind us that kindness travels farther than we ever imagine. The house had been Harold's project, Cape Cod style. 2 stories, built with his own hands in 1974. White paint that had yellowed over the decades. Gutters that needed cleaning. A front porch where they used to sit on summer evenings, watching fireflies drift across the yard. Martha had stopped sitting on that porch after the funeral. She looked around the living room now, seeing it the way a stranger might. The furniture arranged exactly as Harold had left it, his reading glasses on the side table, his fishing magazines stacked by the fireplace. 3 years, and she still had not moved them. The kitchen still held the ghost of bacon grease Harold used to fry it every Sunday morning. And sometimes Martha swore she could still smell it, though she had not cooked bacon since he passed. The dog, the pregnant stray, lay on Harold's blanket, eyes half closed but ears still turning at every sound. Alert even in exhaustion. Martha understood that kind of sleep, the kind where you never quite let go. Because letting go meant missing the phone when it finally rang. Except the phone never rang anymore. She thought about her children, Robert in California, building software she did not understand, Susan in Boston, practicing law she never explained, 5 grandchildren between them, 3 on the West Coast, 2 closer but still too far. She had memorized their school pictures, tacked them to the refrigerator, studied their faces for traces of Harold. The last call had been Thanksgiving. Susan, rushed, distracted, a child crying in the background. 7 minutes. "Talk soon. Mom." The words that meant nothing at all. Martha's gaze drifted to the phone on the kitchen counter, black, silent, waiting for calls that never came. She had started leaving the porch light on all night. 6 months ago. Not for burglars, what would they take? Not for visitors who would come, just so someone driving past might see the glow and know that a person still lived here. That she had not become one of those stories on the evening news. Elderly woman found deceased. Neighbors noticed the smell. Mrs. Patterson across the road had Susan's number, had gotten it at Harold's funeral just in case. She had said. Martha suspected it was just to keep tabs. The dog whimpered. Martha looked down. The German shepherd's body had tensed, muscles rippling beneath the patchy fur. Her breathing came faster now, shallow and quick. Then Martha saw it, the belly tightening, contracting, a wave of movement beneath the skin. The dog's eyes opened wide, found Martha's face, held there. Not just pregnant, in labor, right now. Martha's knees cracked as she pushed herself up from the floor. The dog's eyes tracked her movement, pupils dilated, breath coming in short bursts. Easy, Martha said, though she was not sure if the words were for the dog or herself. Easy now. She grabbed the phone from the kitchen counter. Her fingers, stiff with arthritis, fumbled through the contacts. Dr. Peterson, the veterinarian Harold had used for his hunting dogs years ago. The number was still there, saved in a phone that remembered more than her children did. 3 rings, 4, then a recorded voice. Cheerful and distant, "Merry Christmas. Our office is closed until December 26th. For emergencies, please contact." Martha hung up, tried the emergency line listed on the recording. A tired voice answered. "County Animal Emergency. How can I help you? I have a dog. She's giving birth. Right now, on my living room floor. Ma'am, we handle medical emergencies. Injured animals, poisoning, that sort of thing. Natural births usually don't require intervention. Is there bleeding? Is the mother in distress?" Martha looked at the German Shepherd. The dog panted rapidly, tongue lolling, body rigid with each contraction. "She's a stray. Showed up at my door an hour ago. I don't know anything about her history. I understand. But we're not equipped for routine deliveries. Most dogs handle birth instinctively. Just keep her comfortable and call your regular vet in the morning." The line went dead. Martha stood in her kitchen, phone in hand, staring at the dog who had appeared out of the snow and was now about to give birth on her dead husband's blanket. "Well, ain't that just the way?" she muttered. She set the phone down and retrieved the old laptop from the corner of the living room. Susan had bought it 5 years ago. Insisted Martha learn to use it. Email. She had said, "Stay connected." Martha mostly used it to read news and check the weather. Her fingers moved slowly across the keyboard, hunting and pecking the way Susan had taught her. HOWTOHELPDOGGIVEBIRTHATHOME. The screen filled with results. She squinted, adjusted her reading glasses, increased the font size until the words became clear. Clean towels, warm water, sterilized scissors, string or dental floss for tying off umbilical cords. A clean, quiet space. Martha read through the instructions twice. Her hands trembled slightly as she gathered supplies from the linen closet, the good towels. The ones she saved for company that never came, a pair of kitchen scissors, boiled in water on the stove, dental floss from the bathroom cabinet, a mixing bowl filled with warm water. She spread the towels around the dog, creating a nest of sorts. The German Shepherd watched her with those dark eyes, still wary, still waiting for the catch. "I'm trying to help," Martha said. "That's all. Just trying to help." The dog's body seized with another contraction. A low whine escaped her throat, the first sound she had made since arriving. Martha checked the time on the microwave. 3:47 a.m., Christmas morning, 50 years ago. She had been in labor herself on a holiday, Easter Sunday, 1976. Robert had arrived at 4:15 a.m., screaming and red-faced, while Harold paced the hospital corridor because fathers were not allowed in delivery rooms back then. Now here she was, 72 years old, alone in a house that echoed with memories, about to play midwife to a dog she had known for less than 2 hours. The German Shepherd's body convulsed, her back legs stretched out, her head pressed against the blanket, Harold's blanket, and her breathing turned shallow and fast. Martha knelt beside her, ignoring the sharp protest of her knees against the hardwood floor. She placed one hand near the dog's head. Not touching, just present. The dog's eye rolled toward her, then away. "You know what to do," Martha whispered. "Your body knows. I'm just here if you need me." The minutes stretched. The furnace hummed. Snow ticked against the windows. And then, at 4:23 a.m. on Christmas morning, the first puppy emerged. The German Shepherd twisted around immediately, instinct overriding exhaustion. She tore at the membrane with her teeth, licked the tiny body with fierce determination. A moment later, a thin, high-pitched cry filled the room. Martha exhaled. She had not realized she was holding her breath. 1. The mother dog barely paused before another contraction gripped her. She panted, pushed, and 28 minutes later, a second puppy slid into the world, then a third, then a fourth. But the fourth one did not cry. It lay motionless on the towel, slick and still, while the mother licked, and nothing happened. Martha reached for it. The German Shepherd's head snapped toward Martha, lips pulling back from her teeth. A low growl rumbled in her throat. Martha froze, hand extended halfway. "I know," she said quietly. "I know you don't trust me. But that pup isn't breathing, and you've been licking it for 30 seconds now." The mother's eyes held hers, wild, protective, ready to bite if necessary. Martha did not move. She kept her hand where it was, palm open, fingers relaxed. The website had said something about this, how mother dogs could become aggressive during birth, how instinct overrode everything else. "Please," Martha whispered. "Let me try." The dog's growl faded, her ears flattened against her skull. She looked at the motionless puppy, then back at Martha, and something shifted in her expression. Not trust, not yet, but permission, born from desperation. Martha picked up the puppy. It fit in one palm. Wet, warm, utterly still. She could feel the tiny rib cage, the miniature spine, the legs no bigger than her fingers. The article had said to rub the back gently but firmly. Stimulate breathing. Clear the airway. She grabbed a clean towel and wrapped it around the puppy, leaving the face exposed. Her thumb stroked along the spine. Small circles, firm pressure, nothing. 10 seconds. The mother dog whined. Martha rubbed harder, pressed lightly on the chest, tilted the head downward to drain any fluid. 15 seconds. Still nothing. Her own heart pounded against her ribs. This tiny creature smaller than the bread rolls she used to bake for church suppers lay limp in her hands. 20 seconds. "Come on," Martha breathed. "Come on, little one." 25 seconds. 30. Then a twitch, a spasm that ran through the entire miniature body. Martha kept rubbing. A sound emerged. Thin, high, more a squeak than a cry, but a sound nonetheless. The puppy's legs kicked weakly against the towel. Its mouth opened and closed. Another squeak. Stronger this time. Martha realized her face was wet. Tears she had not noticed falling dripped onto the puppy's dark fur. "There you go," she said, her voice cracking. "There you go." She placed the puppy back beside its mother. The German Shepherd immediately pulled it close, licking it with renewed intensity, and the tiny creature squirmed its way toward warmth and milk. Martha sat back on her heels. Her knees screamed in protest. Her back ached. Her hands shook with adrenaline and exhaustion. But she did not move. At 6:02 a.m., the fifth and final puppy arrived. This one came easier than the others, a small body with a white blaze across its chest, like a star painted on dark fur. It cried immediately, a healthy wail that echoed through the quiet house. 5 puppies, all alive, all nursing. Martha counted them again, just to be sure. 1 black, the largest of the litter, 1 brown with tan markings, 1 that kept making noise, its squeaky voice louder than its siblings, the one she had saved, smaller than the rest, pressed tight against its mother's belly, and the last one, with that white star on its chest, 5. The same number as her grandchildren. She pushed the thought away. Coincidence. Nothing more. The mother dog lay on her side, exhausted, eyes half closed. She had stopped growling at Martha sometime during the last hour. Now she simply watched, too tired to protest, as Martha gathered the soiled towels and replaced them with fresh ones from the stack. By noon, Martha's hands shook when she tried to pour coffee. The pot rattled against the mug, dark liquid splashing onto the counter. She wiped it up with a dish towel and carried the coffee to the living room, where she sank onto the couch. 3 hours later, she woke with a start, neck stiff, the cold coffee still clutched in her hands. Sadie, the dog, needed a name, and that one had come to her in sleep lay exactly where Martha had left her. Puppies nursing quietly. Eyes watching the old woman on the couch. Dawn had crept through the windows while Martha slept. Gray light at first, then pale yellow as the sun rose over the snow-covered fields. Martha stood, joints popping, and walked to the window. She pulled back the curtain. Outside, the world had turned white overnight. The mailbox wore a cap of snow. The trees bent under the weight of ice. The road had disappeared entirely. Christmas morning in Maine. Silent, cold, beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. She heard movement behind her and turned. The German Shepherd had lifted her head, not looking at her puppies, looking at the window, at the light streaming through the glass. The dog stared at the sunlight with an expression Martha had never seen on an animal's face before. Not fear, not curiosity, something closer to wonder. How long had this creature lived in darkness? The scars, the missing notch in her ear, the way she flinched at raised hands, all of it pointed to a past Martha could only imagine. Basements, cages, rooms without windows, and now, perhaps for the first time in years, sunlight touched her face. The dog closed her eyes, tilted her muzzle toward the window. Her whole body seemed to soften, muscles releasing tension held for so long. Martha watched. Something shifted between them in that moment. The dog was no longer just a stray who had appeared on her doorstep. She was a survivor. Like Martha, like all the women who had endured and lost and somehow kept going. "You need a name," Martha said softly. The dog's ear twitched at her voice, but she did not open her eyes. She stayed there, face turned toward the light, drinking in the warmth she had been denied. Martha looked at the 5 puppies nursing quietly, looked at the mother who had fought to bring them into the world, looked at the sun rising over the snow, and for the first time in 3 years, she felt something stir in her chest that she could not quite name. Then the phone rang. Martha stared at the phone on the kitchen counter. It kept ringing. A sound so unfamiliar in this house that for a moment she could not remember how to answer it. She crossed the room and picked it up. "Hello. Mom, Merry Christmas." Susan's voice, bright and rushed, with something playing in the background, children laughing. Television noise. "Susan." Martha leaned against the counter. "Merry Christmas. I know it's early there, but the kids were up at 5 and I wanted to catch you before things got crazy. How are you?" How was she? Martha looked at the German Shepherd lying on Harold's blanket. 5 puppies nursing at her belly, blood and fluid staining the towels she had not yet cleaned up. "I'm fine," she said. "Busy morning." "Busy." "What are you doing?" Martha hesitated. "I've got a dog here. She showed up last night. Had puppies about an hour ago." Silence on the line. Then Susan's voice. "Careful now, a dog. What kind of dog? German Shepherd? Stray? Someone dumped her. I think, Mom." Susan's tone shifted. The cheerful holiday voice disappeared. "You can't take in a stray dog, especially not one with puppies. That's a lot to handle." "I didn't take her in. She showed up. What was I supposed to do? Leave her in the snow? More silence. Martha heard Susan exhale slowly. "Look, I have to go. The kids are tearing into the presents. We'll talk soon." "Okay, maybe call animal control after the holiday." "Sure, talk soon." Martha hung up, looked at the dog. The dog looked back. "Talk soon," Martha repeated. "Always talk soon." The days blurred together. Day 1. Martha did not leave the house. She sat on the floor beside Sadie, the name had stuck, and watched the puppies sleep and nurse and sleep again. The mother ate ravenously, devouring the canned chicken Martha found in the pantry and drinking bowl after bowl of water. Day 2. Martha learned to bottle feed. The smallest puppy, the one she had saved, could not latch properly. Its siblings pushed it aside, too weak to compete. Martha mixed formula from a recipe she found online, warmed it in a saucepan, and held the tiny body in her palm while it sucked weakly from a medicine dropper. Every 2 hours, through the night, like having an infant again. Except her back hurt worse now, and there was no husband to trade shifts with. Day 3. She gave the puppies names. The largest one, all black with a serious expression even at 3 days old shadow. The noisy one, whose squeaky cries echoed through the house at all hours, Echo. The one who always crawled closest to the fireplace, seeking warmth, Ember. The smallest, the one she had brought back from stillness, Hope. The last born, with that white blaze on its chest, Star. Martha wrote the names on index cards and taped them to the wall above the makeshift nest. Sadie watched her do it, ears perked with something that might have been curiosity. "They need names," Martha explained. "Can't keep calling them that one and the little one." The dog's tail moved, just a twitch, but it was something. Day 5. Something changed. Martha sat in her chair, knitting a scarf that no one had asked for and no one would receive. The yarn slipped from her needles and rolled across the floor, bumping against Sadie's paw. The German Shepherd looked at it, looked at Martha, then, gently, she nosed the ball of yarn back toward Martha's feet. Martha picked it up. Her throat felt tight. "Well, I'll be—" The second week, Martha made an appointment with Dr. Ellen Hayes, the veterinarian 2 towns over. Getting Sadie into the car took 40 minutes. She would not enter the crate, flinching away every time Martha tried to guide her inside. Finally, Martha wrapped her in a clean blanket and carried her to the back seat like an oversized, trembling baby. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and dog food. Sadie pressed against Martha's legs in the examination room, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Dr. Hayes was a woman in her 50s, silver-haired and direct. She examined Sadie with efficient hands, checking teeth and eyes and ears, palpating the still swollen belly. "She's malnourished but recovering," the vet said. "Puppies look healthy. Considering, you did good." Martha nodded, waiting for the rest. "Mrs. Whitmore." Dr. Hayes pulled off her gloves. "What's your plan here?" "Plan. 6 dogs is a lot, especially for someone living alone. The puppies will need vaccinations, deworming, eventual spaying and neutering. The mother needs dental work, her teeth are in bad shape, and she's got some behavioral issues that might need professional help. She's not aggressive, just scared. I believe you. But scared dogs can be unpredictable, and the cost of caring for 6 animals." The vet let the sentence hang. Martha looked at Sadie still pressed against her legs, eyes fixed on the door. "I'll figure something out," Martha said. Dr. Hayes handed her the bill. $285. Martha wrote the check without looking at her balance. As she turned to leave, Dr. Hayes held out a small brochure. German Shepherd Rescue of New England. They help with cases like this, cover vet bills, find homes for puppies. If it comes to that, Martha took the brochure and stuffed it in her purse. New Year's Eve arrived cold and clear. Martha sat in the living room with the television off. No ball dropping in Times Square, no champagne, no one to kiss at midnight. Just her and 6 dogs and the sound of wind against the windows. Sadie lay at her feet. The puppies slept in a pile on the blanket, twitching through whatever dreams newborn dogs might have. "Sadie," Martha said, testing the word again. She had thought about other names, Sarah, Bella, Lady, but none of them fit. The name had come to her that first morning, borrowed from a memory, Sadie Miller, the cook at the Methodist church when Martha was a child, a stout woman with flour on her apron who always slipped Martha an extra slice of pie when no one was looking. "That's your name now," she told the dog. "Sadie." The German shepherd lifted her head. "Happy New Year, Sadie." The dog held her gaze for a long moment, then she lowered her head back to her paws and closed her eyes. Martha smiled. First time in longer than she could remember. Week 3. The puppies opened their eyes. Week 4. They began to walk wobbling, falling, getting up again. By week 5, they were everywhere. Shadow chewed the leg of the coffee table. Echo barked at shadows, at dust motes, at nothing at all. Ember knocked over a lamp trying to get closer to the heating vent. Hope, still the smallest, followed Martha from room to room like a tiny ghost. Star discovered the joy of unraveling toilet paper. Martha's back ached constantly. Her knees protested every time she knelt to clean up accidents. She had not slept more than 4 hours straight in over a month. The house, silent for 3 years, now rang with noise. She opened her laptop one evening and searched, "How much does it cost to raise a dog?" The numbers made her stomach clench. Food, vet bills, supplies, emergencies multiplied by 6. Her Social Security check deposited the same amount every month. After bills, after groceries, after the medications that kept her blood pressure stable, she had maybe $200 left. Enough for 1 dog. Carefully managed. Not enough for 6. Martha closed the laptop. Sadie lay beside her chair, head resting on Martha's foot. The warmth of the dog's body seeped through her slipper. "We've got a problem, girl," Martha said quietly. Sadie's tail thumped once against the floor. Martha found herself talking to Sadie the way she used to talk to Harold. Weather reports, complaints about Susan's phone calls, observations about the news. Sadie never answered, but her ears always turned toward Martha's voice. She listened. Sometimes, that was enough. In the corner, Hope had separated from the pile of sleeping puppies. The smallest one tottered across the room on unsteady legs, climbed into Martha's lap, and curled into a ball against her stomach. Martha stroked the soft fur, felt the tiny heartbeat against her palm. She thought about the shelter, about the forms she would have to sign, about what happened to dogs nobody wanted. The brochure from Dr. Hayes sat in her purse, unopened. Her hand kept stroking, gentle and steady, while Hope slept and Sadie watched and the winter wind howled outside. Then the doorbell rang. Martha set Hope down and walked to the front door. Through the frosted glass, she could see a figure in a dark uniform. She opened the door. A man stood on her porch, middle-aged, heavy-set, clipboard in hand. His jacket read Pine County Animal Control in faded yellow letters. A name tag pinned to his chest, D. Morrison, Mrs. Whitmore. "That's me." "Ma'am, we sent a letter last week regarding unlicensed animals at this address. Since we didn't receive a response, I'm here for a follow-up inspection." The letter, Martha remembered now, an official-looking envelope she had tossed in the trash without opening. Assuming it was junk mail, she glanced past Morrison toward the house across the road. Mrs. Patterson stood at her window, pretending to adjust her curtains. "A letter," Martha said flatly. "From who?" "That's confidential, ma'am." But I do need to see the animals. Martha stepped aside. What choice did she have? Morrison entered the living room and stopped. His eyes moved across the scene. Sadie pressed into the corner, hackles raised, positioning herself between the stranger and her puppies. The 5 young dogs tumbling over each other on the blanket, the water bowls, the food dishes, the pile of towels waiting to be washed. 1, 2, 3, moo, he counted under his breath. 6 dogs total. That's right. Ma'am, town ordinance allows a maximum of 4 domestic animals per household without a special permit. He scribbled something on his clipboard. You're over the limit. They showed up 5 weeks ago. The mother was pregnant. I couldn't exactly send her back into the snow. I understand. His voice carried no understanding at all. But the law is the law. You have 30 days to either register all animals with proper licenses and vaccinations, or surrender the excess to a county-approved facility. He tore a sheet from his clipboard and handed it to her. Martha looked at the form. Registration fees, vaccination requirements, mandatory spaying and neutering. Her eyes found the estimated total at the bottom, $1,500 to $2,000. 30 days, Morrison repeated. He looked around the room once more, then headed for the door. Have a good day, ma'am. The door clicked shut behind him. Martha stood in the middle of her living room, paper trembling in her hand. Sadie had not moved from her protective position. The puppies, oblivious, continued their wrestling match on Harold's blanket. $1,500. She did not have $1,500. She barely had $500. Martha sank into her chair. The paper crumpled in her fist. The phone rang at 7 that evening. Susan's name on the caller ID. Martha considered not answering. She answered anyway. Mom, I just got off the phone with Mrs. Patterson. Of course she had. Dorothy Patterson had been calling Susan with concerns about Martha since Harold's funeral. The woman collected other people's problems like some people collected stamps. She told me animal control came by 6 dogs. Mom. Really? I told you about them. You told me about a stray. You didn't tell me you were running a kennel. Martha gripped the phone tighter. I'm not running anything. I'm taking care of animals that needed help. And now you need to pay $2,000 in fees. Can you afford that? That's none of your business. It is my business. You're my mother. Martha stood up from the chair, Sadie's head lifted, tracking the sudden movement. If I'm your mother, where have you been? When's the last time you visited? When's the last time you called for any reason other than someone else calling you first? Silence on the line. Martha could hear Susan breathing, the way she did when she was trying not to lose her temper. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. Mom, listen, Robert and I have been talking. Oh, have you? We're worried about you, living alone in that big house, not taking care of yourself. Now hoarding animals. I'm not hoarding anything. Maybe it's time to think about somewhere with more support, a smaller place. Somewhere you don't have to worry about maintenance and bills and... Martha's hand shook. You want to put me in a home. Nobody's putting you anywhere. We're just thinking about options. Options! Martha's voice rose. Sadie stood up, ears flat. I raised you and your brother in this house. I nursed your father through 2 years of cancer in this house. Changed his sheets when he couldn't get out of bed, held his hand when he stopped breathing. And now you want to take it away from me because I rescued some dogs. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Tell me, Susan. What is it really about? Silence stretched between them, filled with all the things neither of them would say. I have to go, Susan finally said. The kids need dinner. Sure. The kids need dinner. We'll talk soon. The line went dead. Martha stood in the middle of her kitchen. phone still pressed to her ear, listening to nothing. Her chest felt tight. Her eyes burned. Sadie patted over and pressed her nose against Martha's thigh. "Just you and me, girl," Martha whispered. "Guess that's how it's gonna be." 2 in the morning. Martha sat in the living room with all the lights off. She had not slept. Could not sleep. The conversation with Susan played on loop in her head. Each word sharper than the last, a smaller place, more support. Options. She knew what those words meant. She had watched friends disappear into those places, the assisted living facilities with their cheerful names and their locked memory care units. Pleasant gardens, sunny meadows, places where people went to be managed until they stopped being problems. Pastor Williams at First Methodist still sent Christmas cards every year, even though Martha had not set foot in church since Harold's funeral. She wondered if he would visit her in one of those places. She wondered if anyone would. The puppies slept in their corner, piled together for warmth. Sadie lay at Martha's feet, head resting on her paws, eyes open in the darkness. Martha looked at her hands, spotted with age, knuckles swollen from arthritis. The same hands that had held her newborn children, that had braided Susan's hair for school pictures, that had clutched Harold's fingers as he took his last breath. Old hands, useless hands, hands that could not even afford to keep 6 dogs alive. She thought about the shelter, the forms, the sterile rooms and the numbered cages. She thought about Sadie, who had survived years of darkness only to end up back in a cage. She thought about Hope, the tiny puppy she had saved, who followed her everywhere now. She thought about the house around her Harold's house, their house, and how quiet it would be again, how empty. Martha bent down and placed her hand on Sadie's head. The dog did not flinch this time. She leaned into the touch. "I thought I could save you," Martha said, her voice cracking in the darkness. "Turns out, I can't even save myself." Sadie's tail moved once against the floor. A small comfort, the only comfort left. Outside, the wind picked up. Snow began to fall again, covering the world in white, erasing footprints and tire tracks and any evidence that anyone had ever passed this way. Martha sat in the dark with her dog and watched the snow fall. Then, she picked up the phone and dialed the shelter's number. The voice on the other end was tired but professional. "Pine County Animal Shelter. How can I help you?" Martha's throat tightened. She forced the words out. "I need to surrender some dogs, a German Shepherd and 5 puppies." "Okay, ma'am. I can schedule you for Saturday morning at 10. Does that work?" "Saturday? 6 days away?" "Yes," Martha said. "That works." She wrote the appointment on the calendar hanging by the refrigerator, the same calendar where she used to mark the grandchildren's birthdays, Harold's doctor visits, church potlucks she no longer attended. Now it held a single entry in her careful handwriting, 10 a.m. Shelter. She did not look at Sadie when she hung up the phone. The week passed slowly. Martha tried to keep her distance. She fed the dogs at regular times, cleaned up their messes, made sure they had water, but she stopped sitting on the floor with them. Stopped letting Hope climb into her lap, stopped talking to Sadie the way she had been talking to her for weeks. It was easier this way. Harold had done the same thing in his final months, pulling away bit by bit, speaking less, touching less, at the time. Martha had thought he was being cruel. Now she understood. Easier to leave if you were already half gone. But Sadie would not cooperate. The dog followed her everywhere. When Martha sat at the kitchen table, Sadie lay beneath it, her body pressed against Martha's feet. When Martha tried to read in the living room, Sadie rested her head on the arm of the chair. When Martha went to bed, Sadie appeared outside the bedroom door, watching through the crack until Martha finally gave up and let her in. At night, The dog slept beside the bed. Martha would wake at 3 in the morning and see those dark eyes reflecting the moonlight, watching her, guarding her. As if Sadie knew something was wrong and was determined not to let her face it alone. The puppies were easier to avoid. They played with each other, explored the house, slept in their pile. They would not remember her. But Hope, the smallest one, the one Martha had saved, Hope, was different. She had bonded during those desperate hours of bottle feeding. She still followed Martha from room to room, still tried to climb into her lap, still made small crying sounds when Martha pushed her away. Martha pushed her away anyway. Friday night, Martha could not sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind outside and the soft breathing of Sadie on the floor beside her. Tomorrow morning she would load 6 dogs into her car and drive them to a building where strangers would take them away. She would sign papers. She would walk out alone. She would come home to silence. At 2 in the morning, she gave up and went downstairs. The puppies were asleep in their corner. 5 small bodies curled together on Harold's blanket, the blanket that had absorbed their birth, their first weeks of life, the smell of their mother. Sadie lifted her head when Martha entered the room. Her tail did not wag. She just watched. Martha sat down on the floor beside her. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Martha reached out and put her arms around the dog. Sadie stiffened. Old reflexes, old fears. But she did not pull away. Martha held on. She felt the dog's ribs beneath the fur still too prominent, despite weeks of good food. She felt the scars on the ears, the patches where fur would never grow back. She felt the warmth of a body that had endured so much and somehow kept going. "I'm sorry," Martha whispered into Sadie's neck. "I'm so sorry." And then she cried. Not the polite tears she had shed at Harold's funeral, not the quiet leaking she sometimes did alone at night. This was something else, something locked inside her for 3 years, building pressure. It broke now, all at once, and she sobbed against Sadie's fur until her whole body shook. Sadie did not move. She let Martha hold her, cry into her coat, make sounds that were not quite human. She stayed perfectly still, warm and solid and present, when there was nothing left. Martha sat back. Her face was swollen. Her nose ran. She felt hollowed out. "Some rescue I turned out to be," she said. Sadie's tail moved once against the floor. Saturday morning arrived gray and cold. Martha dressed carefully. A clean blouse, her good wool coat, the shoes she saved for church. Harold always said she should look presentable when leaving the house. Loading the dogs took half an hour. Sadie entered the crate without resistance. She had learned that fighting made things worse. The puppies went into a cardboard box lined with towels. They squirmed and cried, too young to understand. Martha drove the 20 miles to Pine County Animal Shelter with the radio off. The only sounds were the engine's hum and the occasional whimper from the back seat. Sadie did not make a sound. She lay in the crate with her head on her paws, staring through the wire door at the passing scenery. Fields of snow, bare trees, a world she had barely gotten to see. The shelter was a low concrete building at the edge of town. Martha parked in the visitor lot and sat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel. Through the windshield, she could see the front entrance. A woman came out with an empty leash in her hand, eyes red, walking fast toward her car. A man went in carrying a cat in a plastic carrier. The glass doors opened and closed, opened and closed. Martha got out of the car. The lobby smelled like bleach and urine and something metallic. A young woman sat behind the front desk, hair in a ponytail, wearing scrubs that had once been blue. Name, Martha Whitmore. You're surrendering. Let me check. 1 German Shepherd female and 5 puppies. Yes. The woman typed something into her computer. Any history on the mother vaccination records. Previous owners. She was a stray. Showed up at my house on Christmas Eve. I think she came from a breeding operation. There are scars. And she was terrified of everything, at first. The woman nodded without looking up. German shepherds from unknown backgrounds can be difficult to place. Behavioral issues. You know. And we're pretty full right now. Martha's stomach clenched. What does that mean? It means we'll do our best. The woman slid a form across the counter. Sign here, please. Martha looked at the paper. Legal language. Liability waivers. A line at the bottom waiting for her signature. She looked through the glass doors that led to the back. Rows of cages. Dogs pressing against the wire. Barking, crying, staring with desperate eyes. She looked at Sadie, still in the crate, still silent. The dog was watching her through the wire mesh, not accusing, not pleading, just watching. The same way she had watched through Martha's front door on Christmas Eve, expecting nothing, hoping for nothing, simply waiting to see what would happen next. And Martha saw herself, not in Sadie's eyes, but reflected in them, a 72-year-old woman standing in an animal shelter, about to sign away the only living creatures who had needed her in 3 years. The people who had dumped Sadie on that frozen road had probably told themselves it was for the best, too. Probably said they had no choice. Probably drove away feeling justified. Martha was no different. She was becoming them. The heat rose in her face. Not tears this time. Something worse. A burning shame that started in her chest and spread outward until her whole body felt hot. She had rescued this dog, delivered her puppies, named them, fed them, saved the smallest one's life with her own hands. And now she was giving them to strangers who had just told her they might not survive. The pen trembled in her fingers. Ma'am, the woman behind the counter looked up. Is there a problem? Martha set the pen down. I changed my mind. The woman blinked. Excuse me. I said I changed my mind. I'm taking them home. Ma'am, you already filled out the intake form. You said you couldn't afford. Then I'll figure it out. Martha's voice came out stronger than she expected. I've been figuring things out for 72 years. Ain't about to stop now. She turned before the woman could respond. Walked back through the lobby, past the barking and the crying and the smell of despair. Her hands shook as she opened Sadie's crate. The dog stepped out slowly, looked around at the shelter, at the other animals, at the concrete walls, then looked at Martha. Her tail wagged. Just once, just enough. Come on, girl. We're going home. Martha did not drive straight back to the house. She stopped at the public library in town, the one she visited every week, to return books she barely remembered reading. The parking lot was nearly empty on a Saturday morning. Inside, she found an open computer and sat down. Her fingers moved slowly across the keyboard, hunting and pecking the way Susan had taught her years ago. She opened her email and began to type. Dr. Hayes, this is Martha Whitmore, the woman with the 6 dogs. I tried to surrender them today, but I couldn't go through with it. I don't have much money, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep them. Do you know anyone who might help, any organizations, any programs? I'm not asking for charity. Just a chance. Thank you. Martha Whitmore. She read it twice, fixed a spelling error, added her phone number at the bottom, then she pressed send. The screen showed a small notification, message sent. Martha stared at it for a long moment. She had done something. Not much, probably not enough, but something. She logged out and drove home. 2 days passed. Martha did not check her email. She was afraid to. Afraid of finding nothing. Or worse, finding a polite rejection. On the 3rd day, her phone rang. Mrs. Whitmore, this is Ellen Hayes. I got your email. Martha sat down heavily in the kitchen chair. Dr. Hayes, Thank you for calling. I've been thinking about your situation. There's an organization called German Shepherd Rescue of New England. They help with cases like yours, cover vet bills, find homes for puppies, that sort of thing. I called them this morning. Martha's grip tightened on the phone. And they want to help. A woman named Linda runs their foster program. She's going to reach out to you. I don't understand. Why would they help me? Because that's what they do. Dr. Hayes paused. And because I told them about you, what you did for that dog, not everyone would have taken her in. Martha could not speak. Her throat had closed up. Linda will call you next week, Dr. Hayes continued. Just hear her out, okay? Okay, Martha managed. Thank you. Linda called the following Tuesday. She was perhaps 60, with a warm voice and a practical manner. Here's how it works, Linda explained. You keep the dogs. We cover the vet costs, vaccinations, spaying, neutering, the works. We've also got connections at the county office. I can get your dogs registered as a licensed foster arrangement, which takes care of that ordinance problem. When the puppies are old enough, we help find them good homes. Sadie stays with you permanently if that's what you want. Why? Martha asked. Why would you do this for a stranger? Because Sadie isn't a stranger anymore. She's yours. And you're not a stranger either. You're someone who saw an animal in need and did the right thing. Linda came to visit 3 days later. She examined each puppy, took photographs, asked Martha questions about their personalities and habits. She spent a long time with Sadie, watching how the dog moved, how she responded to touch, how she positioned herself near Martha at all times. She's bonded to you, Linda said. That doesn't happen often with dogs from her background. Before Linda left, she asked for permission. I'd like to share your story on our Facebook page. Sometimes people want to help when they hear about situations like yours, but only if you're comfortable with it. Martha hesitated. I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's community. Linda smiled. You'd be surprised how many people are looking for a reason to do something good. Fine, Martha said. But don't make me sound pathetic. Linda laughed. I'll make you sound like exactly what you are, a stubborn woman who refused to give up. 1 week later, Linda called again. Martha, you need to sit down. I'm already sitting. Good. Because our Facebook post about you and Sadie has been shared over 2,000 times. And the donations. Linda paused. Martha, people have donated over $4,000 to help you keep those dogs. Martha's hand went to her chest. That can't be right. It's right. I'm looking at the account now, from people all over the country. Some gave $5, some gave $100. One woman in Texas gave $500 and wrote that your story reminded her of everything her mother used to do for strays. Martha pressed her palm against her eyes. Her face was wet. There are messages, too, Linda continued. Hundreds of them. People saying your story made them cry, made them call their mothers, made them think about the dogs they could have helped but didn't. I didn't ask for this, Martha whispered. I know. That's probably why it happened. The phone rang again that evening. Martha looked at the caller ID. Susan. She answered. Mom? Susan's voice sounded different, smaller. I saw the Facebook post. One of my co-workers shared it. Martha waited. Mom, I'm sorry. About what I said. About the assisted living thing. I freaked out. I didn't know what to do. I know, honey. I should have asked what you needed instead of telling you what I thought you needed. Martha closed her eyes. Sadie pressed against her leg, warm and solid. The kids saw the pictures, Susan continued. They've been asking about the puppies all day. Emma wants to know if she can name one. They're already named. I told her that. Susan paused. Mom, can we come visit next weekend, all of us? Martha looked down at Sadie. The dog looked back, tail moving slowly against the floor. "I'd like that," Martha said. "Really. Really." Silence on the line. Then, Susan's voice, thick with something Martha had not heard in years. "I love you. Mom." 3 words. Martha could not remember the last time she had heard them. "I love you too, honey." She hung up the phone and looked at Sadie. "Well, girl," she said, "looks like we're having company." 3 months later, the snow melted. Martha stood on the front porch with a cup of coffee, watching the world come back to life. The maple tree Harold had planted their first year in the house was budding. Crocuses pushed through the mud along the walkway. The air smelled like wet earth and something green spring. Finally, after the longest winter she could remember, Sadie lay at her feet, head resting on her paws. Hope, no longer the tiny creature Martha had held in her palm, sprawled beside her mother. Gangly legs and oversized ears, still growing into her body. Shadow sat at attention by the porch steps, watching the road. 3 dogs now. Down from 6, Echo had gone to Vermont, to a veteran named Thomas who had served 2 tours in Afghanistan and came home with nightmares. He sent Martha photographs every week, Echo lying on his bed, Echo riding in his truck, Echo pressing against his legs during a thunderstorm. "She knows when the bad dreams are coming," he wrote. "She wakes me up before they get too dark." Ember found a home with a young couple in New Hampshire. They had just bought their first house, a small cape with a fenced yard and a fireplace Ember could sleep beside. The wife was pregnant. Star went to a woman named Ruth, 68 years old, widowed, living 40 miles north in a farmhouse much like this one. Ruth had seen the Facebook post and called Linda the same day. "I buried my husband in October," she had said. "The house is so quiet I can hear myself getting older." Martha understood. She and Ruth talked on the phone every Sunday now. 2 old women comparing notes on their dogs, their gardens, their children who called too seldom. Not friends exactly, they had not met in person yet, but something close, someone at the other end of the line. Sometimes. That was enough. A car turned into the driveway. Martha set down her coffee cup. Sadie's head lifted. Shadow's tail began to wag. Susan's minivan rolled to a stop. The doors opened, and 2 children spilled out, already running. Grandma, Emma reached her first 9 years old, all legs and energy. Throwing her arms around Martha's waist, Lucas followed close behind, 7 and serious, making straight for Shadow. "Can I throw the ball for him, please?" "He'd like that," Martha said. Lucas grabbed the tennis ball from the porch railing and took off around the house, Shadow bounding after him. Susan climbed out more slowly. She looked tired. She always looked tired now, but she was smiling. "Traffic wasn't bad," she said. "Made good time. Come in. I made pie." The house filled with noise. Emma's chatter about school and dance class. Lucas's shouts from the backyard as Shadow retrieved the ball again and again. Susan's voice mixing with Martha's in the kitchen, talking about nothing important, the weather, the news, the price of groceries. Sadie moved through it all, checking on each person, circling back to Martha, settling finally beneath the kitchen table with her head on Martha's foot. Hope stayed close too. She followed Martha everywhere still, a habit from those first desperate weeks that had never quite broken. At dinner, 4 people sat around the table that had held 2 for 50 years and 1 for 3. The noise filled every corner, forks scraping plates, children arguing about who got the last roll, Susan telling a story while Lucas interrupted to ask if dogs could eat pie. Martha sat at the head of the table, Harold's seat, once, hers now. She did not say much. she did not need to. She just watched. Later, after the dishes were done and the children were asleep upstairs, Martha sat on the porch with Sadie. The night was cool but not cold. Stars scattered across the sky. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. Susan had gone to bed early. The house was quiet again, but differently quiet now. Full quiet. The kind that came after noise, not instead of it. Sadie lay beside Martha's chair. Hope curled at her feet. Shadow had positioned himself at the top of the porch steps, still guarding. Martha looked up at the stars. "You seeing this?" "Harold." The wind stirred the branches of the maple tree. No answer. There never was. But Martha smiled anyway. She still missed him. Every day, she would always miss him, but the missing had changed shape. It no longer filled every room. It had become something she carried instead of something that carried her. Sadie's ear twitched. The dog looked up, those dark eyes reflecting the porch light. "Thank you," Martha said quietly, "for finding me." Sadie's tail moved once against the wooden boards. Inside, Martha's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She did not rush to get it. She sat for another moment, looking at the stars, feeling the weight of Sadie's head under her hand. Then she stood, knees protesting as always, and went inside. The message was from Susan. Kids already asking when they can come back. Maybe next month. Martha looked at the screen, looked at Sadie, who had followed her in and now stood waiting. She typed slowly, one finger at a time. Any time. "We'll be here." She set the phone down and turned off the kitchen light. In the living room, Sadie settled onto the navy blue blanket. Hope climbed up beside her mother. Shadow took his position by the front door. Martha stood in the doorway, watching them. 3 dogs, 2 grandchildren asleep upstairs, a daughter who had finally come home, a house full of life, where there had been only silence. She walked to her bedroom, and for the first time in 3 years, she did not leave the porch light on. She did not need it anymore. Someone would notice now. Someone would come. And when they did, she and Sadie would be here. Waiting, but not alone. Never alone again. If you have made it this far, you have carried something with me tonight. Perhaps it sits quietly in your chest now, something tender, something familiar, something that does not need a name. Many of us know what it is to wait by a phone that does not ring. Many of us have walked through rooms that echo with voices no longer there. Some of us have wondered, in the small hours of the morning, if anyone would notice our absence. These are not easy things to hold. They do not ask to be understood, only witnessed. Martha's story does not wrap itself neatly. Life rarely does. There are still bills to pay, still aches and aging bones, still silences that stretch too long between calls. But there is also a dog sleeping on a worn blanket, and grandchildren who ask when they can return, and a porch light that no longer needs to burn through the night. It is all right if this story has stirred something you cannot name. It is allowed to rest there, unresolved, unhurried. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening.